but the contributors are our members, in particular our fuel suppliers and fuel buyer members. And these two groups tend to have a different outlook, a different perspective on the outlook for nuclear power, so a lot of tough discussion has to go into producing these scenarios. And here is the result of their deliberations. So we can see solid growth for nuclear capacity to 2035 in both reference and upper scenarios. And these projections are comparable to those of other organisations that do energy forecasts, such as the international, the IEA. Let's look now, take a closer look at the reference scenario, where we reach 550 gigawatt of capacity by 2035. A lot of the growth is in Asia, and particularly in China, with 55 new plants by 2025 and 118 by 2035. Indeed, together with India, Korea and Russia, China accounts for 3/4 of new build projects to 2035. Another exciting feature is the development of nuclear in new countries. So between 2015 and 2035, our members expect to see new nuclear not only in UAE and Belarus, but also countries like Bangladesh, Malaysia, Poland, Saudi Arabia, Vietnam, and of course Turkey. And if we compare this to the 20 years, 1996 to 2016, there was only one country which brought nuclear online in that time, and that was Iran. So moving on, I mentioned in my introduction that while there is a healthy outlook for nuclear, then the industry needs to contribute more to help reduce global carbon emissions and subsequent temperature rise. It's not just the World Nuclear Association that is saying that. According to the IEA, the nuclear, which is shown in light blue, needs to be the single biggest contributor to power by 2050 in order to meet their 2-degree scenario. So that's more than gas, coal, wind, solar and hydro. And indeed, it's a larger production than in the upper scenario of our fuel report. So it's a tough ask. But we regard this as a call to action for our industry. Let's look in more detail. According to the IEA, to get to 17% nuclear generation, we have to get from 2,500 terawatt hours of nuclear today to 8,000 terawatt hours in 2050, and that equates to around 930 gigawatts of capacity. If we take into account 150 gigawatt of retirements, then we need 680 gigawatts of new capacity by 2050. So how do we achieve this required nuclear new build, which, as I showed, the industry is not on track to achieve? At our annual symposium last September, my Director General, Agneta Riesing, who was a speaker at IMPPS 2 last year, launched the so-called Harmony objectives. And these are, first of all, a level playing field. So the first, we need to have electricity market reform, particularly in deregulated markets. And we believe these markets should and can be reformed to support capital investments, to include grid system costs, to eliminate nuclear-only taxes, to reform subsidies, and to give credit for low carbon emissions. The second objective relates to the perceived risk of nuclear vis-à-vis other energy forms. Nuclear power, by any measure, is by far the safest dispatchable generating option on a per kilowatt hour basis. This includes the effect of nuclear accidents and covers workers and the public. And this does not even take into account the effects of climate change. But changing those perceptions represents a huge outreach program, huge and effective outreach program, not just by industry, but by governments, scientists and other stakeholders. And the third objective is more harmonised regulatory processes. So we heard from Jeff Benjamin, Westinghouse, this morning how operators like to be part of a global nuclear fleet in order to obtain the benefits of common feedback experience. But those benefits are hampered at the moment because countries continue to apply national safety standards and licensing processes. Great resources are expended in licensing a reactor design in each country. And differences in regulations lead to plants that cannot be fully referenced against each other. So we think harmonised regulatory processes with truly referenceable fleets are a win-win, both in terms of economy and safety. Okay, my last point is that as part of the Harmony vision, our association believes that nuclear needs to be ready to go beyond the International Energy Agency's 2-degree projections, or 70% nuclear in the global electricity mix by 2050. And that's because many of the low carbon technologies, for example, carbon capture and storage, are unproven at this moment on an industrial scale. So nuclear may need to do more. And as you can see here, we believe that our goal is for 1,000 gigawatts of new capacity by 2050, which will bring nuclear up to 25% of global power supply. Can we reach this ambitious target? We believe it is possible through a progressive ramp-up in construction to 2025. And we're confident that we can achieve this, namely because in the 1980s such a connection rate was achieved. I think the historic high was 31 gigawatts per year in the mid-1980s. So I have gone over my time, even though I've rushed through. This is my final slide. Nuclear is doing well, but it needs to do even better. To achieve this, we need to have a level playing field, harmonised regulatory processes, and a more effective safety paradigm. This should allow nuclear to supply 25% of global electricity by 2050. Thank you for your attention. I'm here today, tomorrow at the conference if you would like to discuss Harmony or the World Nuclear Association.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gorlin. Very enlightening speech. Now we have Jean-Paul